The purpose of contemplation practice in that harnessing of the conceptual mind is that we're actually inviting, we all have wisdom within us that we normally do not have access to because our minds stay so busy. We're thinking about breakfast all the time or whatever it might be. And so that there's no space for that wisdom to arise. So when we deliberately create some space and invite insight to arise, then we might find, in your case, what you found was that the wisdom that was arising within you was right here, right here. This is what I need to do. I had an experience one time where I was having difficulty with a person, and I was really ready to pick up the phone and let that person know what I was thinking about them. And I did this contemplation practice. And in the contemplation practice, the question I asked myself was, what is the most skillful way to deal with so-and-so? Because I had enough self-awareness to realize that picking up the phone and blasting off probably wasn't the most skillful way. And the first thought that came when I contemplated was, you need to stand your ground. So that was interesting because it did feel like there was an issue of boundary. But then I set that aside and I thought, okay, is there anything a little bit deeper than that? And the next thing that came was, you need to see that person's fear. That a lot of what was going on was arising out of that person's fear that I was taking personally. And then I set that aside, and then I asked myself again, what's the most skillful way to deal with this person? And what finally arose was, find out what that person wants from you. So that it was like I didn't start in any place that was like, let me find out what this person wants from me. I started with, I'm going to give this person a piece of my mind. But the contemplation, by going deeper and deeper, gave me insight that this person had fear that I could actually see and relate with, and that I could afford to be inquisitive with this person about what was going on between us. The contemplation practice is useful in so many different ways. It's useful when something's bothering us and we can't figure out what it is. It's useful when we have a situation that we're not sure what to do about. It's useful when we want to clarify our goals. It's useful in almost any situation in which we would like to bring more clarity and insight into the process of making a decision or understanding an experience. So these are the 4 steps of contemplation practice. First, you clear a space with mindfulness. So if you want to do, I'm going to just give you an idea, and then we're going to do a very short contemplation here that will be our final meditation, and then we'll talk about homework. But the first thing is we'll sit for a couple of minutes. I'm going to guide you through this. Bring to mind a question or an issue. Be patient. So one of the things that is actually an obstacle to insight arising is our impatience to have an answer. And so be patient, open curiosity, and then set aside the first answer that comes up. It may be valid, it may be valuable, it may be something you need to take into consideration, but just be aware of it, and then you go back to mindfulness and remind yourself of what your question or issue is, and be patient, and see if you can go a little deeper, a little further into whatever it is you're exploring. See if you can explore deeper and further. Repeat, and then repeat again. So we'll do it 3 times. Don't struggle for an answer. That is the biggest obstacle to insight arising. Let insight come to you. What I said earlier about space, if you create the space and you allow there to be space, then insight can arise within that space. For those of you that bought Patton's book, he has a very good chapter about this in there, about how to work with this contemplation practice. But for right now, I'd like to ask you to put down your pens and notebooks, and let's do a short contemplation practice. This is going to be very short. Normally in a contemplation practice, I would like to have maybe 15 minutes or so. That gives you enough time to, but we're gonna do it in about 7 or 8 minutes, because I want to have a couple of minutes to answer any questions and talk about homework. So let's just, I'm going to ring the bell, and then I'm going to do this guided, and you can think of anything that you want to. I'm not going to give you any particular guidelines, so you can think of anything you want to contemplate. So let's start with just simply settling in your seat and bringing your attention to your breath. I'd like to invite you to bring to mind some question or issue that you have some uncertainty about, something that you would like to have more insight with regard to. And just bring it to mind. Articulate it as clearly as you can in your mind. If there is a person or a location, something visual that is associated with it, see if you can bring that into your mind. And now ask yourself, what would it be helpful for me to understand or know about this? Without struggling for an answer, just let that hang there, keeping in mind whatever your question or issue is. What would it be helpful for me to know about this? And when you have something come to mind, if something comes to mind, just set it aside and allow a little space. Maybe bring your attention back to your breath and ask yourself, is there something more? Is there something a little deeper about this situation or person or question? Is there something a little more that it would be helpful for me to know? If nothing arises in response, that's fine too. This is a kind of crash course, so when you have time to allow more space, you might want to revisit this. But if you did have another thought come, you might set that aside as well. And go a little bit deeper, see if there's anything more around this situation that you want to explore that would be helpful for you to know. When you feel like you have explored your question or issue as much as feels right, you can just return to simply being present. Mindfulness practice.